What's going on, everybody? We're coming to you with a special video today, something that kind of arose on Twitter, and this is going to be looking back on my 2018 NFL draft grades. And when I make these videos every year, there's a horde of people that are like, why do you even do these? We don't know how good these players are going to be. This is pointless. And it's like, well, why are you watching the video? Look, I spent the last 4 months at this point in the season watching these players, and I want to issue statements on who I think had good drafts, because it's not like everyone has good drafts. So I want to project who's going to have good drafts, which players were good values, who filled needs, and all that stuff. So we're going to look back on my grades, do a little self-reflection, see where I was right and where I was wrong. How we're going to do this is just go look at all the individual picks, recorrect any bad grades I gave, and then I am just going to issue a new grade for the class as a whole. So we're going to start in the NFC West with the Seattle Seahawks. I was not fond of this draft looking back on it. I still think, even though the Seahawks are having a good season, some of the talent deficiencies on this roster you can point to this draft. So Rashad Penny in the first round was kind of a luxury pick for the team that I thought was in kind of a transition. I loved Rashad Penny, but I thought it was a terrible pick to take a running back that early, because you can find a Chris Carson as an undrafted free agent to be really good. So I'm going to stick with a D on that one. Rasheem Green has not developed as much as I had kind of expected. I thought that was one of their better picks this year. Will Dissly has definitely outperformed that F grade. I thought he was just a blocker. He's been a pretty good tight end. He has had injury concerns. Shaquem Griffin's finally getting on the field. Trey Flowers, I mean, they took him at safety, converted him to corner. Seahawks fans love him, but in reality, I don't think he's any lock to be a good number 2 corner. He's probably slightly outperformed that 5th round drafting, but I'm not going to give that an A. And then you took Jamarco Jones, who hasn't stayed healthy, and a punter in the 5th round who's a good punter. Jake Martin served his purpose as a piece in the Clowney trade. So really, I think this was a good grade of the Seahawks. The best pick in this whole thing is probably Will Dissly. You could argue Trey Flowers. But yeah, I don't think that the Seahawks nailed this class at all, and I think some of their talent deficiencies still show, even if they are winning a bunch of games. So the Rams, really more of the same with the Seahawks. I thought they found some decent value based on my evaluations, but didn't really think they knocked any of these picks truly out of the park. Noteboom in the 3rd was a good idea to address offensive line, but he hasn't really worked out. Brian Allen was fine. He's been about as good as I thought he'd be as a center in the NFL. He's been a low level starter. John Franklin Myers no longer on the team. Micah Kiser no longer on the team. Same thing with Jamil Demby. I don't know if Trayvon Young's still there. Travon Howard, Justin Lawler. These guys were all pretty much washes. You do factor in that Brandon Cooks was included here basically, as they gave up their 1st round pick for him. Akvanya Okoronkwo has been buried by a deep edge room. John Kelly has not been nearly as good as I thought he was. I still kind of am holding out hope for him, but he just has been buried on the depth chart there. They don't seem to like him. I thought that was their best pick. So I gave them a C+. I think I'd even lower that to a C. Just not a very impactful draft for the Rams. So our first 2 grades holding up pretty well. 49ers, we gave them a C. I love the Mike McGlinchey pick, getting the best tackle in that class. I would even raise that to an A. That was a home run pick. And then they took Dante Pettis in the 2nd round, and I spent a lot of this last summer apologizing for this, not loving this pick. I had a 5th to a 6th round grade on him. I just thought this was a reach, and he definitely outperformed that as a rookie, but now he can't get on the field. They got to trade for Emmanuel Sanders. They clearly don't buy into him anymore, and he's looking more and more like a guy that should have been a 5th round pick. So that C grade is probably fair. And then Fred Warner was just a total steal in the 3rd round. He's a total stud at linebacker. He's been a big part of everything that's going on there in San Francisco with that revamped defense. You got to give that an A. After that, they didn't really find a whole lot. Julian Taylor's getting on the field, which is good for a 7th round pick. He's kind of a versatile lineman, so definitely got to bump this one up. I'm going to go with a B+ for the 49ers. Definitely a better draft than I thought at the time. Now, keep in mind, I try to keep those A grades for drafts that I think were just slam dunks so that those A's really stand out. So then we got the Arizona Cardinals, and yikes, there's an A right there. So I thought the Josh Rosen pick was really good. I was kind of average on Josh Rosen as far as where I stood on him. I did have him as a potential top 5 pick. That was pretty common. And I thought the Cardinals did a good job at number 10 to get a potential franchise quarterback. Now, their problem was they didn't surround him with any help and really give him any chance to succeed there. And it's kind of a unique situation to evaluate because they probably would have stood behind Josh Rosen, except for they had the opportunity to take Kyler Murray the next year. So it all kind of worked out. I think you'd give that pick, in hindsight, a C. I still think the process was good there, but it just didn't really work out. And then for Christian Kirk, a B, I think that's fair. He's been fine. Mason Cole hasn't really gotten on the field for a bad offensive line. Probably lower that to a C for a 3rd-round pick. But Chase Edmonds, a good pick in the 4th round. And then Christian Campbell, they took in the 6th round. I thought that was a total steal of a corner, and that has not worked out. He's floated around different practice squads. So you obviously got to lower this grade, mainly because of the Josh Rosen thing, but it kind of worked out because it ended up getting him Kyler Murray, who's been the best quarterback to come out in a long time. So I would give this a B-. Kirk and Edmonds were decent finds there. All right, on to the NFC South. We got the New Orleans Saints. So they gave up a future 1st-round pick to move up and get Marcus Davenport. I did criticize that, but I did think that was kind of the one missing piece on that roster, and he's played pretty well. I would say he hasn't completely lived up to what you would hope when you make that big of a move, but definitely not a bad pick. So I think B is fair there. Traquan Smith, I thought that was a reach. He's definitely outperformed my priority free agent grade on him, but I also don't think he's emerged as that number 2 wide receiver as they would have hoped. So I think you give that somewhere between a C and a B. And then the rest of these picks just have not resulted in anything. So I think this B grade would come down a little bit to maybe a B-. Smith and Davenport, not the worst of picks, but probably not a slam dunk of a draft. Then we got the Panthers. I gave them a B-. I did like the DJ Moore pick, and then I liked the Dante Jackson pick a lot. So they really hit on their first 2 picks, which is going to help. They didn't really find anyone in the mid-rounds. I do still think Andre Smith, if he ever gets an opportunity, could be a player. But all that said, I think you get potential star corner and wide receiver in the 1st and 2nd round. That's a pretty good draft no matter what you do after that. So we're going to bump this up to a B+. Then the Atlanta Falcons, Calvin Ridley. He's been solid. I was definitely a little lower on Calvin Ridley. I thought Courtland Sutton should have been the pick there if you were going to go wide receiver, and I thought that was a bit of a luxury pick, but B is probably fair. It's not like he's been a bust by any standard. Isaiah Oliver, probably not an A. He's still developing. He still has upside, but has not been an impact rookie corner. Deidre Sanat's gotten on the field. Ito Smith, a solid 3rd down back. They found Foye Oluokun in the 6th round as a good cover linebacker. Even Russell Gage is getting on the field. So I think this was a pretty solid draft. I would maybe keep this as a B. I think this was pretty fair. And then the infamous Tampa Bay Buccaneers draft, where I shredded them for taking Vita Vea over Derwin James, and that clearly has held up because they still can't rush the passer when they took a nose tackle, and they still can't cover when they could have had arguably the best safety in the NFL. Now, I gave it a B because Vita Vea is a good player, and that's held up. I didn't want to give it a D or an F because I thought they still got a good player, even if it was at an invaluable position. So, I think that's still probably fair as a B. And then Ronald Jones, I gave this an F. His rookie year made this look genius. He's playing a little better lately, but it's still a 2nd-round running back. I would hope he can score a couple touchdowns here or there. I don't think he's been incredible by any stretch of the imagination, so maybe you bump that up to a D, but still not a good pick. MJ Stewart had a harder time getting on the field. They kind of moved on from him a little early, but he's been in and out. He's fine. Carlton Davis, I did not like this pick in the 2nd round. I just don't like stiff, slow corners. He can be good in some matchups, and that's kind of shown. He's had some good weeks here and there. But ultimately, I don't think that was a very good pick. You probably bump that up to a C, maybe even a B, but still not like some total steal, and I don't think they should be playing Carlton Davis myself. I would keep it personally as a C. And then Alex Kappa, Jordan Whitehead, he's been okay as a safety there. So, they found some players that are playing, and Vita Vea is the only one I feel good about being a piece of this team in 3 years. I would even lower this down to a C, maybe even a C-. Just not a good draft. All right, the Eagles, I gave them a B. And they kind of had the strategy of trading a lot of these picks for veteran players that helped them win a Super Bowl that year. So that definitely factored into the B grade here. Dallas Goedert was a great pick in the second round. Then they found a starting slot corner in the fourth, and Avonte Maddox. Josh Sweat has actually showed some nice things as a guy that I didn't think was going to make much of an impact as a rookie. He was injured coming out, but then was a guy that could definitely develop here with this team, and that's certainly showed. So those first three picks were pretty good. They got some veterans there that are still there, and Darby and Timmy Jernigan, Matt Pryor, Jordan Mailata, some swings at offensive line late. I think this was a pretty solid B grade here. I think this is definitely held up. The Redskins, thought this was a really good draft finding value. I gave it an A. And despite the fact that this team has really struggled, I think that a lot of these picks that I liked are showing on the roster right now. So Deron Payne, a really good player. I, just like the Bucs, thought they should have taken Derwin James, and you would redo that in a heartbeat. But that's fine. Darius Geis, just injury issues, but I still thought that was an excellent pick that fit what they wanted to do in that physical play style in Washington. Jerron Christian, they haven't played him much, but I still think he can be a player. He's actually played more lately and looked pretty good. Troy Apke, I thought this was a total steal, and he's playing well this year. Tim Settle, the same thing. Deion Hamilton's played linebacker this year at a decent level. And then Trey Quinn was a good pick in the 7th round too. So great job finding value. Now, they didn't really find any game-breaking superstars in this class, so you'd maybe knock this down to like a B, B+. But still a pretty good draft for the Redskins. It's just not showing as far as how good of a team they are. They got a lot of issues there. And then the Giants draft. This was a fun one. So, I ripped them for taking Saquon Barkley, and people got to understand that I thought that Saquon Barkley was the best prospect I've ever evaluated, but I still think they should have gone with Sam Darnold. And I'll stand by that today. So I'll stick with a B because Saquon was probably the best running back in the NFL as a rookie. And then this has been kind of the theme for the Giants, is finding value after the first round, but missing out on value in the first. So they took Will Hernandez, a great pick in the second round. I didn't think he had any business falling out of the first. Lorenzo Carter, developing as an edge player. BJ Hill has been a great third-round pick, definitely outperforming that 7th-round grade I had on him. And then they took RJ McIntosh, who had a second-round grade on. He's getting on the field lately. He's been all right. Lauletta was a flop. But still, this is a pretty good draft here. I gave them an A- despite shredding them for taking Saquon Barkley and making fun of Dave Gettleman all the time. I think I'd actually stay with the A- grade there, even though I don't think it really excuses them passing on Sam Darnold for Saquon Barkley. And no, I don't think how Daniel Jones has played in his rookie year has made up for that. All right, the Cowboys class. I thought this was an awesome class. I gave this one an A, and that was with not being super high on Leighton Vander Esch. I didn't hate him. I had a 2nd-round grade on him. They took him in the first, but he's turned out to be one of the better picks in that class. Connor Williams has gone the other way. He's been fine as more of a developmental young lineman. He's played a little bit better as of late. I'm not going to write him off yet, but he has struggled. And then Michael Gallup has been a total beast. A lot of people thought this was a no-brainer lock steal pick in the 3rd round. Armstrong, Schultz, wouldn't give up on them yet. I think they're, players that are developing and could be players in a year or two. Cedric Wilson, he's been injured, but I thought that was a good pick in the 3rd round. Bo Scarborough getting on the field for Detroit. Dallas didn't stick with him, but I'm going to stick with this A grade. Leighton Vander Esch was an outstanding pick. They found Michael Gallup in the 3rd round. They got their starting left guard in the 2nd round. Outstanding draft. All right, on to the NFC North. The Minnesota Vikings. I didn't love the Mike Hughes pick. I thought it was fine, but I just thought they had other needs and that he was kind of a fringe 1st-round value anyway. But, it is what it is. It's not like that's been a total disaster. They do need cornerback help, so, it is what it is. 2nd round, Brian O'Neill. I did like this pick. I thought he was a super high upside guy, and this has got to be an A+++. He's been one of the better tackles just coming out of drafts in recent years, period, and was much better as a rookie than I thought he would be. So that's got to be an A. Jalen Holmes hasn't worked out. Carlson in the 5th round was a terrible pick. Gassett didn't work out here. Downs, Aruna. They didn't really find anything after the 2nd round. I think Mike Hughes probably goes down to a C at this point. So, but getting a franchise tackle in the 2nd round definitely helps things out. I think I'd knock this down to about a B-, but not a bad draft. Then the Green Bay Packers, I loved this class. And to be honest, it's a class that's been riddled with injuries and off-field issues. Jair Alexander, this has got to be an A. I mean, they moved down. They got a future first-round pick and took one of the better players in the first round. So that's going to help this thing to walk away with Jair Alexander and a future first-round pick. But it really is a pretty terrible class after that. Josh Jackson, I thought he was going to be a stud corner. Maybe never a superstar, but definitely a starting caliber guy. And he hasn't been able to get on the field in Green Bay this year. So that you got to lower to like a C probably. Oren Burks has been injured. He can't get on the field. Jamon Moore was released. He got to Green Bay and just didn't want to work, so they cut him. Cole Madison, not long after the draft, stepped away from the team for mental health issues. He just tore his ACL a few weeks ago. I thought that was a steal in the 5th round, but just hasn't worked out for him. J.K. Scott was maybe their second best pick in this entire class, getting a punter here. Marquez Valdez-Scantling's been terrible. He's playing like a 5th round pick should. And then Equanimeous St. Brown was probably the best pick after the 1st round here, but he is out for the year this year. So this class was kind of riddled with injuries and off-field concerns and a lot of that. I thought it was a really good class at the time, but I think you got to lower this A grade to like a C+. You're really only walking out of here with Jair Alexander, a future 1st round pick, and a punter, which isn't the worst thing, but with all the picks they had here, you would have expected a lot more. And like I just went on a rant on Twitter, I think this team is suffering from some of these bad picks here. They still don't have wide receivers and linebackers on this team, and they tried to address that, and they just missed. All right, for the Lions, Frank Ragnow, I give that a B. He's been a really solid center. The way he's playing lately, you can maybe even give that an A. But they did play him at guard as a rookie, and now they switched him over to center. He's been much better. Kerryon Johnson, D is not fair here. He's a better player than that. I had a 3rd to a 4th round grade on him. I thought that Darius Geis would have been a better pick. You know, you'd take Kerryon over Geis, but Kerryon has also had injury concerns, which was a reason I was lower on Kerryon to begin with. So a little bit of hit, a little bit of miss on that. I think that's probably closer to like a B, though. That was a pretty good pick. And then Tracy Walker, this got to be an A. I mean, he's a stud safety. They found in the 3rd round. Deshaun Hand, another A here. He's had some injuries, but has been a total star when he's been on the field. And then Tyrell Crosby is just good rotational depth for an offensive line. Can play guard or tackle. So I think in the 5th round to get that player is still a really good pick. So I would bump this grade up probably to an A-. They found some really good players with really good value in this one and got a really good starting lineman. All right, the Chicago Bears, I loved this class. Roquan Smith, I gave that an A. He's actually hasn't been quite as good as I thought. It's not that he's been terrible, but hasn't really taken that step up as like a Bobby Wagner type of cover linebacker. James Daniels in the 2nd round, gave that an A. He's been really solid, probably closer to a B based on how he's played so far. Anthony Miller, he was my number 2 wide receiver in this class. I thought that was a total steal, and I think if they had better quarterback play, he would definitely be rewarding them more for that pick. I didn't think the Egan Booneway pick in the 4th was a good pick because they already had linebackers on that roster, so I gave that a D. That's held up. Bilal Nichols, thought this was a good high upside pick in the 5th round, and man, has that worked out for them. Outstanding rookie year. Kylie Fitz, Javon Wims, decent values there at the end of the draft. So we gave them an A-. I think, you ding Daniels a little bit. Roquan hasn't been quite the home run that you would hope, but he's still been really good. And then Bilal Nichols was a total steal in the 5th round. So I'm going to stick with an A- here for the Bears. I think that was a good grade. All right, the Oakland Raiders. I wasn't huge on this class. I thought Colton Miller was a fine pick, and he sucked as a rookie, but has turned it around. PJ Hall is developing there. So the first 2 picks were solid. Didn't love the Brandon Parker pick in the 3rd round. He hasn't worked out. Arden Key in the 3rd round. Thought it was a good swing for the fence. He hasn't really worked out, but I thought the process was fine. Nick Nelson thought was a good pick in the 4th round. He's dealt with injuries. Maurice Hurst was a slam dunk pick. I thought they got their best player in the class in the 5th round, and that's held up. He's been a beast. And then the rest of it, Marcel Aitman has shown some flashes as a 7th round pick, so that A might be a good grade. I think this is one of my better grades of this entire class. I think all these guys, I think I would repeat every grade on here, except for Nick Nelson, who's dealt with some injuries, but still a 4th round pick for a corner that I really liked. All right, the Chiefs, this was a very uninspiring draft class. Breeland Speaks, I actually don't know exactly why I gave that pick a B, to be honest. I thought he was fine, a guy that definitely needed to develop, and was a bit of a tweener. That's definitely held up. I did have a 3rd to a 4th round grade on him. Derek Nadi, fine as a run-stopping interior lineman in the 3rd. Dorian O'Daniel, I thought, was their best pick there in the 3rd round. Good cover linebacker, but they don't play him as much as they should, in my opinion. And then Armani Watts, Trayvon Smith, Khalil McKenzie, who they converted to guard. None of these guys have worked out. So this is a pretty bad draft, like really bad draft. I mean, they went defense with every pick here. Yeah, every pick except for converting McKenzie to guard. I mean, they went defense with every pick, and none of these guys are really impact players. So I think you got to bump this down to like a C minus. The only reason I gave it a B minus was because that 1st round pick was Patrick Mahomes, who they traded up for. So that definitely helps things a good bit. All right, the LA Chargers. Derwin James, thought it was a slam dunk pick, the best pick in the class, and that has held up. That's going to help out this entire draft class grade. Uchenna Nwosu, thought it was a solid 2nd round pick. He's been a good, versatile flex linebacker for him. Kaiser White's been a good linebacker in the 4th round. Probably even give that an A. Justin Jones has been pretty poor. He's maybe been their best D-line this year, though. Scott Kessenberry starting at center. That's actually looking like a pretty good pick in the 5th round. And then Justin Jackson can totally play as a 7th round sleeper. So this is definitely one of the better drafts of this year. I gave it an A minus. I would actually give that an A in hindsight. The Denver Broncos loved this draft. I gave this one an A plus, saying it was one of the best classes for sure. So Bradley Chubb with the 5th pick definitely worked out. Slam dunk pick. Cortland Sutton, my number 1 wide receiver in the 2nd round, and that's played out. He's been the best wide receiver in that class. Maybe DJ Moore, but I also like DJ Moore. Royce Freeman's been a good 3rd round pick. Isaac Yiadom, I thought it was good value in the 3rd round. He's been pretty poor. I think you'd lower that to probably a C or a B. Josie Jewell's just a safe linebacker. Never saw a high upside there, but he's been fine. Deshaun Hamilton was good value in the 4th. Troy Fumagalli, good value in the 5th. So I gave it an A plus. I think I would stand by that. I mean, you got the best edge rusher in this class and the best receiver in this class, and it's not like they totally took an L on their other picks either. So I think that still holds up as one of the better draft grades. So at this point, I think, pretty solid grades looking back on this stuff. So the Titans, I gave this one an A because I loved the Harold Landry pick. I thought that was, next to Derwin James, is the best pick in this class. I had a top 10 grade on him, and he's been an outstanding edge rusher. So getting him in the 2nd round, just a slam dunk. And then Rashaan Evans has been a pretty good linebacker in the 1st round as well. Dane Cruikshank can play some safety. They only had 4 picks here. I liked Luke Falk at 1st to a 2nd round grade on him. That was one of my worst evaluations for sure. But I'm going to stand put. I think an A grade is very fair considering what they had to work with here, getting Evans and Landry, who are big parts of a really good defense here in 2019. The Houston Texans, so they didn't have a 1st or a 2nd round pick. I think that was all part of the Deshaun Watson trade. So the fact that you get this and Deshaun Watson with that 1st round pick partially. So Justin Reed, to me, they got a 1st round talent in the 3rd round, and he has been outstanding. So that helps things out here. After that, Kiki Kuti was fine in the 4th round. The rest of these guys haven't really done anything. I really like Duke Ejiofor. He reminded me a lot of Carl Lawson. Unfortunately for Ejiofor, his injury concerns came to fruition, unlike Carl Lawson's, so he hasn't really worked out. The rest of this class, pretty uninspiring, but I think I would even bump this up to an A because you factor in the fact that Deshaun Watson is a part of this. You get Kuti, who's a decent slot guy. Justin Reed could do a lot worse than what they walked away with here. Now, you would hope that Martinez Rankin would have worked out because they needed offensive line help, but they've done a good job to address that in other ways. All right, the Jacksonville Jaguars didn't love this class. I thought the Taven Bryan pick was a little unnecessary. Now, DJ Chark, this is an interesting one because I thought he was 3rd to a 4th round grade. Definitely a guy that needed to develop and was not ready, and that held up. He was terrible as a rookie, but he has developed way better than I could have imagined. So I think you got to acknowledge that he was not good as a rookie, but obviously has outperformed this. You got to give that either a B or an A. Ronnie Harrison in the 3rd round, he's been fine. Will Richardson in the 4th, we'll wait and see on that one. Leon Jacobs was an excellent pick in the 7th round, like I thought it was. So pretty good draft. Taven Bryan has been really quiet, though. They could really use a guy to step up on the interior there. I think B minus, I would bump that up to a B because DJ Chark has really worked out. But other than that, they haven't really walked away with a whole lot in this class. Then we got the Indianapolis Colts. This is a legendary draft class. So they took Quentin Nelson, slam dunk pick. Definitely an amazing pick. Now, I was not very high on Darius Leonard. I was wrong on that one. He's a hell of a linebacker. That was one of the better drafts. I loved the Braden Smith pick in the second round. He was a guard in college, but I even said in this video that they could kick him to tackle, and I think I was the only one that really pointed that out in the draft community, that he was 6'6" and athletic, and that he had the frame of a tackle, and that if I took him, I would maybe try him out at tackle first and then move him to guard if it didn't work out. So those first three picks, incredible. And I really like Kamoko Toure. He's been good when he's been out there. Tyquan Lewis has played all right as an edge player. Nyheim Hines has been an impact as a receiving back. You're 5 picks into this thing, and they've found impact players at every position. And then the rest of these guys, nothing really else there. Deion Kane tore his ACL, I think it was, not long after the draft. I just noticed he's actually on the Steelers now, and he was doing some things this week. But man, this is an outstanding class. Man, you got to give this an A+. They knocked this one out of the park. They built through the line and the front seven, and that's been the core of this team this season. So this draft really defines who the Colts are. I think you got to give it an A+. All right, the New England Patriots. It's tough to be critical of the New England Patriots, but the draft for them can be hit or miss. They really are not the best drafting team. They supplement in other ways through free agency and a lot of other ways, but Isaiah Wynn in the first round was a good pick. I gave it a B. He did get injured. He'd maybe be an A if he's been healthy this whole time, but we'll stay put with a B there. I thought the Sony Michel pick was bad. He's been fine. I think a lot of other running backs would look a lot better than Sony Michel has here in New England, but I didn't like the value there. Now, when you're New England, and for them, sometimes a 5th-round pick is the same as a 2nd-round pick, just because of the way they do things, but I still don't think that was a great pick. Duke Dawson isn't even on the team anymore, a 2nd-round pick. Juwan Bentley is probably the best pick in this class. He's been a slam dunk pick. You got to bump that up to an A. Christian Sam, he's not good. Braxton Berrios is on the Jets. Danny Etling is gone. Keon Crossan's gone. Ryan Izzo, I think, is still there, but whatever. I mean, this is a terrible draft class. There's really no way around it. You did find a potential franchise tackle in the first round, which is really good and is going to save this thing. But other than that, I mean, this is a pretty big L. I'm going to give this one a D+. All right, the Jets, loved the Darnold pick. Didn't think they did anything nice after that, really. I mean, Nathan Shepard's been a player. They got a really good deep D line there. Chris Hernan's been a little better than I expected, but he's dealt with injuries. And then they did nail Lorenzo Fatukasi in the 7th round. That might have just been a little lucky, but they definitely liked him. He's been an outstanding run defender. So to get Darnold, to get Shepard, Fatukasi, Chris Herndon, just an amazing draft. I think I would bump this up even to an A because they've gotten things from Shepard and Fatukasi that I didn't think they really got much. So a great pick for the Jets. And then the Dolphins. So Minka Fitzpatrick, I mean, if they didn't trade him, you would stick with that A. They could not get him to play up to his potential for whatever reason. But we'll keep that as an A because we've seen how good he is as a player. Mike Gesicki, I gave it a B. He just, I did not love him necessarily. I did have a 2nd to a 3rd round grade on him, but couldn't deny the upside and the developmental upside there for him. And he is still developing. He's taken some small steps up this year. Next year is going to be a big teller for Mike Gesicki, who was always going to be a project. Jerome Baker was a great pick in the 3rd round. I'll stand by that. And then really the only guy left to talk about is Kalen Ballage, who has not been as good as I thought he would be. He just doesn't seem to have the burst and explosion, so you would lower that grade. Kind of a weird grade to give considering they traded their best player out of this class away already, but I think A- was pretty fair. The picks that we liked have pretty much held up. I would go with a B+ here for the Dolphins. All right, the Bills, Josh Allen. I loved this pick. Was definitely higher on Josh Allen in this draft than most. So he's worked out for them. His flaws have still been his flaws, but they definitely don't regret that pick at all. Tremaine Edmonds was only 20 years old when they drafted him. He has developed very nicely. So his first 2 picks, really nice. Harrison Phillips on IR right now, but he's been every bit as good as I expected him to be. Had a 2nd round grade on him. Teron Johnson, a total steal in the 4th round. And then the rest of those picks kind of or not on the team anymore. But those first 4 picks, really, really nice. I would bump this up to an A. Allen still has his flaws. Edmonds hasn't quite reached that upside yet. Harrison Phillips and Johnson are good players, but at kind of less valuable positions. So really good draft. I'm going to give it an A. All right, on to the AFC North, our last division here, the Pittsburgh Steelers. Terrell Edmonds thought this was one of the worst picks in the draft, and that has held up. Now, he has played in the box a little more lately and has played a little better, but he's played about like I would expect from a third or fourth round pick being asked to start. They happen to take him in the first round. I did like James Washington in the second round. That was a good pick. I did give Mason Rudolph an A, actually, which I think that was more about the process of finding a guy that did have some upside as a physical specimen, kind of someone that fit Big Ben's play style. I didn't think Rudolph was really going to work out. Some people had first-round grades on him. I definitely thought he was a project and a guy that probably was never going to be a starter, but I did like the landing spot, I guess. Obviously was flushed into action a little sooner than you would hope as well, so that one can probably knock that one off as a C. I mean, he's just not good at football. They took a flyer on Chukas Okorafor. I didn't think that was the best value. I don't even know if he's on the team anymore, so that's probably not the best pick there in the third round. Marcus Allen. Jalen Samuels was an interesting pick as a fifth-round pick. He's been solid. So this draft really not very good. They're really walking away here with just James Washington, who looks like probably a really solid number 2 wide receiver. I would ding this one down to probably a C-, maybe even a D+, actually. I mean, they really didn't get much here. And then the Baltimore Ravens draft. I mean, we're ending with some interesting ones here, talking about Lamar Jackson and Baker Mayfield. This is where the concept for this video arose, because I wanted to remind people that I love this pick for the Ravens with Lamar Jackson, even though I've been hard on him for what he showed as a rookie. Clearly, that was the best pick in this draft, in hindsight. Lamar is killing it. He's the league MVP this year. So you give that an A. Hayden Hurst, I didn't think it was a good pick at the time, and that's held up. Mark Andrews was actually a better player, and they got him in the third round. And then Orlando Brown, I thought he was fine. He fell because of combine concerns. I did have a second to a third round grade on him, so I did like him. I like this pick. But those three of those top 4 picks, I mean, Andrews, Brown, and Jackson are probably the 3 players that you point to for why this team has really broken out so much. Lamar has taken a huge step up. Orlando Brown's one of the best right tackles in the NFL. He just mauls dudes. And Mark Andrews is a top 5 tight end. So, I mean, that right there just gives you an A+ draft. After that, I didn't really love any of these picks. I thought Jaleel Scott was a miserable pick. I thought he was stiff, couldn't do anything. Is he even on this team anymore? I don't know. Definitely nailed that grade right there. Jordan Lastly didn't like him either, and I don't think he's on the team. After that, Bradley Bozeman is starting at guard for them, but he's not particularly good in my opinion. So I think the grades here was very, very fair. Now, did I know that Lamar Jackson, Orlando Brown, and Mark Andrews were going to turn into 5 of the best players at their position? No, but I did think they were good picks. So I think this grade was pretty solid. Then the Cleveland Browns. So this was infamous. I gave Baker Mayfield an F. Now, I've apologized for that, and he's clearly better than an F. Only time's going to tell if Darnold or Baker would have been the better pick. But really, ultimately, I think Baker was just what Cleveland needed. With his mindset, I think they made the right pick. And I've said that time and time again. I'd flip this around to an A. They found a really good quarterback. And personally, I think that Baker and Darnold are going to go on and have really good careers. So that was bad. Maybe even worse was my Denzel Ward grade here. Now, I thought Bradley Chubb should have been the pick here, and that's why I was so harsh on this. I was probably a little unfair and was a little too emotional over what they did with Baker. This was not a bad pick. Denzel Ward's an outstanding corner. You'd probably give that an A. So the first 2 picks there, really good. Austin Corbett, I did give this one a B. He has not worked out. He's a Ram now, but I loved the Nick Chubb pick. He's been a top 10 running back this year. And then after that, you got Chad Thomas, who's pretty much lived up to that billing. Jannard Avery was an excellent pick in the 5th round, but they traded him away. And then Antonio Callaway had the talent, but had the off-field concerns as well. So that, pedigree on him has completely lived up to it. But in hindsight, you walk away with a draft with Nick Chubb, Baker Mayfield, and Denzel Ward. That's a damn good draft. We're going to give this one an A+. I mean, this was a great draft. Browns and Ravens really killed it in this draft. And then the Bengals, I thought it was a solid class. Billy Price, I thought was a good pick. I did have a 2nd round grade on him. I didn't think he was necessarily worth where they picked him. He's been way worse than he could have imagined. He couldn't win the starting job at center this year and has played a lot at left guard, and currently I think has the worst pass block grade per Pro Football Focus. So that you got to give a D. I mean, he's been terrible. And then Jesse Bates, you bump that up to an A. I liked him coming out. He's been even better than I thought. Stud free safety. And then Sam Hubbard, second round grade for me. They took him in the third. He's been really solid. He's been about as good as I thought. He's not a elite pass rusher, but just a really solid starting caliber player. And then after that, I didn't really love any of these picks. Logan Woodside, he killed it in the AAF. He was basically the last pick in the draft, so that is what it is. They've gotten some things out of Andrew Brown and Auden Tate, but nothing too crazy there. So other than Billy Price, I think this was a pretty good grade, but you got to knock that for really failing on their first round pick. But they did get Jesse Bates in the second, so I'd lower this to a C+. So that's it. I'm excited to hear your reactions. I had fun just going over, kind of reminding myself of these grades, and I'm kind of proud of most of these grades. Every scout's going to have misses, but I think for the most part, the picks that we said were going to worked out. The ones that we said were bad picks turned out to be bad picks, and the ones that we kind of had as C's and were kind of like uninspiring, a lot of those were just guys that aren't even on the team anymore. So for the most part, I'm really proud of my draft grades from 2018. I'm excited to do this for 2019 in about a year. And I hope you guys enjoyed and are getting excited for draft season. Even though that does mean the end of the NFL, it's always a good time of year to hang around here on YouTube. So make sure you like, comment, subscribe, and we'll see you guys later. Peace out.